So, hi everyone. We'll still do a slow start to the meeting, so feel free to keep chatting your answers or chatting about your birthday. Um, it's awesome to see the participation. It's just so nice to see everybody here. Um, I'm glad we can meet this way. Um, so the question that you see on the screen is which one doesn't belong? And this is just one example of the low floor, high ceiling, open-ended questions uh, that that just invite mathematical thinking and conversations without leaving people out or narrowing the conversation. So I hope this can inspire you a little bit. This one I just made from finding things online, but there's a website where you can look up more of these that I'm about to type in. Um, but actually, I'm going to type it to everybody this time. Yeah, it is awesome to see this, that so many of you could join for this. So just a little bit of background, and again, we're just like building the ramp into the meeting here. So get what you need so we can get started. But usually this is the Adult Numeracy Network annual meeting, and usually this happens during the COABE pre-conference. But because COABE is virtual this year and we're not meeting face to face, we were meeting virtually. But what we're finding is this is really giving an opportunity for many people to join us that wouldn't be able to be at the conference. So that is a very good part of this. Um, so let's because we have a pretty busy agenda for today, let's go ahead and get started. So okay, so welcome everyone. This is our annual meeting, as I said, for the Adult Numeracy Network, and it's our first virtual meeting. And I think I noticed that we celebrated our 25th year of the Adult Numeracy Network last year, and so this is so there were 25 meetings in person, and now maybe the next 25 will be virtual meetings. So I don't know, we'll see how this all goes. Um, but just to let you know, this meeting is being recorded. And so thank you all for being here. And thank you for making time to attend today. So just to introduce myself, I know many of you, but my name is Amy Vickers, and I'm the current president of the Adult Numeracy Network. Not for very much longer, so I'll enjoy that role still while I can. I'm calling from northern Wisconsin. Um, And let's see, I just want to say here, so before I forget, as others are speaking today, we're going to have a lot of different speakers during our meeting. So please just make sure that if you can, just like wave, and maybe Eric will try to put the spotlight on you so people can see your face while you're sharing slides with us. I really just want to take a minute and like look at everybody's faces, but okay, but I'm going to keep moving forward with our meeting. Okay, so before we get started with our Adult Numeracy Network business, um, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge and position us within these serious times that we're in right now. Um, so we have the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic and also the killing of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. So we are all now looking at police brutality and racism and trying to figure out a way to rebuild our broken systems. I want to acknowledge the work that the protesters, the policymakers, and others are doing to create that change. I also want to acknowledge and thank the healthcare workers and other essential workers who continue to risk their health and safety so that the rest of us can have what we need. So please, let's take a moment of silence to acknowledge our own connections to this time. So thank you for that, everyone, and thank you again for joining this meeting. Our work in adult education intersects all of those issues, and later in our meeting, we are going to discuss some specific related actions that ANN could take it as an organization. So here now, you can see the mission here on the right, and then our agenda is there on the left. So I wonder, Linda, would you be willing to read the mission for us? We didn't practice this, so
You need to unmute me.
oh, there you go.
Okay, now it's okay. Okay, good. So hello, and glad to see so many of you. The ANN mission, we're a community at the adult level. We support each other, we encourage collaboration. Whoops, and I have a sign right there. And leadership, and we influence policy and practice in adult math instruction. And I guess this was written about 25 years ago, and to me, it still stands.
Thank you. Um, so for those who don't know her, I asked Linda Ginsburg, a founding member of ANN, to share that mission with us. So yeah, and I agree, it holds very strong still. Um, So let's share a little bit. Some of you, when you agreed to register for the meeting, you shared why you were coming here, and so I just wanted to share a big picture of that. So we have some strong voices here with us. 29 participants, awesome. So maybe you're here to support the Adult Numeracy Network. Some of you are longtime advocates of adult numeracy. Perhaps, I know I believe we have more than one founding member here. Some of you may be new to ANN and want to learn more. In the upcoming slides, I'll share some just kind of big picture. So hopefully maybe you can get some questions answered. But then also, someone noted that they love ANN and this virtual meeting allows them to participate from a distance. And as I noted before, I like that too. And I can see that this could be really valuable to hold the meeting at a distance in the future. Okay, so big picture. What is ANN, the Adult Numeracy Network? So we're a not-for-profit volunteer-led organization. So all the work that you see is done by volunteers. We're an affiliate of NCTM. And then we also partner with COABE and to be the strand partner for the math and numeracy strand. And then we have our ANN Teaching and Learning Institute as a full-day pre-conference, usually before COABE, before the COABE National Conference. And that is that's not able to happen this year, which is something that we're sad about, because that's a place where I would maybe get to see many people here in person, and so I'm missing that. ANN offers the Math Practitioner newsletter three times a year. And then we also have a robust new website that we're really hoping will be able to grow all the ways that we can connect members. As far as where are we headed? In 2018, we had a strategic planning meeting in Minneapolis with the board of directors, and there's a full summary of that on our website if that's something that you care to read more about. But what you see on the screen are the five goals that came out of that meeting. And as Linda brought up, what was really terrific was that when we did that strategic planning meeting, we did a lot of research to see what the needs of the field were. And then, but what we found was that after processing all of that, everything still pointed back to the ANN mission as it was written originally. So, so that's where we're headed. This is what we'll be working toward. And then I just want to share a couple of highlights. So within the Adult Numeracy Network, we have 4 different regions, and then each region has a regional rep. And their role is to connect with the state ANN leaders, and then also to connect with all the members in that region. Some goals that the regional reps shared is that they want to be increasing involvement, especially with submissions to the math practitioner. They want to increase membership. Some work that the regional reps are doing, they're co-leading trainings with fellow ANN members. They are advancing their own math education through doing graduate work. They're working on our ANN website, and they're also participating in with standards in action with Octave. So that's just a little bit of news from the regions. Okay, so now I wonder, Sarah, if you could share about our the financial report for the year. Hey, Eric, could you spotlight Sarah so we can see her face, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I was muted up until now. So what you're looking at is our annual treasurer's report, and it gives you an idea of where we started the year and where we finished it. And this year was kind of unusual. Our biggest source of income, which is pre-conference, did not happen. And our biggest expense, which is COABE and the pre-conference, also did not happen. So our income from the last year was $5,527, and we budgeted to spend a little bit more than that because we have a cushion and because we're trying to advance our strategic plan. However, we came in quite a bit under budget because we didn't have those large expenses, and we also don't have the income. So we're starting the new year in a pretty okay place. We have plenty of savings, and because we came in so far under budget, we are starting in an okay place. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can contact me directly. But other than that, that's our financial report.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll just wait a moment in case anybody thinks of anything. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is our elections. So the way that we elect board positions in the Adult Numeracy Network is that everything is on a 2-year cycle, and so half of the board positions are elected in the even years, and then other half in the odd years. And so here we have the results for this year. So congratulations to these board members. We have Heidi Schuler-Jones as our president-elect, and then Sarah Lonberg-Liu coming back as our treasurer, Patricia Helmuth returning as newsletter editor, Connie Rivera is taking on a new role as the Northeast Regional Rep, and then Adrienne Fontenot is continuing as our South Regional Rep. So thanks to all of you for being willing to step up again and do this work. It takes a while to figure out how to and we always keep learning how to make things work and how to make things happen within ANN. So I'm glad you're still willing to share your knowledge with us and your time and your work. And then, so even though this wasn't part of the election, it just is how it happens. So these all are, the election takes place as of today, as of right now. And so that means that Eric Appleton will be moving into the president's role from the president-elect, and then I'll be moving into the past president's role from the role of president. So today's a big day. Congratulations, everyone. Okay, so now we have, we'll step away from business and do some learning. So Rebecca Strom is the practitioner research leader in ANN. And so could you tell us, Rebecca, could you come on and tell us a little bit about what practitioner research is and then introduce Amy?
Okay, there you go. Thank you. So practitioner research in adult education is kind of a growing field. It's very exciting. As researchers and educators, we're always looking to learn more about our students. And sorry, I got all the screens of all the people. That's awesome. And so a lot of the research out there is K-12 or college-based. So this is an opportunity to explore what we know in the classroom, to learn more about our students, to try out new things. And this year, each year we have funds to support 2 people if they want to do practitioner research. Find something you think is passionate, find something either you've heard about or maybe you've noticed in your classroom that you think would help enhance their learning, that you think would be important to learn more about and share. So I would like to introduce this year's practitioner research was Amy Van Steenwyk. And please correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I just realized I always see it in print and I don't know if I've said it out loud before. So Amy, if you would like to talk about your research project and share how you went, what you learned and your findings.
So yeah, Amy, go ahead and share your screen so you can share your slides.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll get these slides up
And
here and then.
make sure you start by
Yes,
introducing
yes,
yourself.
the slides introduce me, so you'll see that. Um, yeah, so I'm Amy Van Steenwyck, and I work in Minneapolis in a neighborhood called Cedar Riverside. And there's a picture coming up here. I'm an English language learner instructor. And so really numeracy is kind of something that I have the option of putting into my classes or not. So not all of the English teachers in my program are necessarily focusing on numeracy, but that's been something that I've tried to add. So for anyone that may not know Minneapolis, this is kind of a very familiar site. It's right next to downtown. It's near the west bank of the University of Minnesota, and it's primarily residents are primarily from East Africa, as well as going farther back, they were from other countries too, including South Korea and Vietnam. And so there's still quite a mix there. And our classrooms are tucked into these buildings. There's more than what you can see here, but it's quite a complex. I teach a level 2 class, which is considered beginning. Before my level, there's a literacy level class. So for those who are familiar with classes, my students are somewhere in the 180 to 200 range. So what they have in common is their English level, more or less. Their math levels could be all over the place, but the majority of my students are students with limited or interrupted formal education, which means that most of them have not had much math instruction at all, although some have had enough to be noticeably better at doing pretty much addition and subtraction than the other students, but they all are still pretty much at a beginning math level. So my son is at a Montessori school, and so that was how I came to kind of wonder. I got to experience some of the materials when I went to an open house, and I was so jealous because I just felt like my students, so I'm teaching adults, and my students I just felt like would benefit so much from these beautiful kind of tactile materials that I was seeing them use with him. And I really didn't understand it because it takes quite a while to understand how some of the materials work. But anyway, so this was my proposal, and this was what I wanted to research, was whether using Montessori materials would bring a noticeable kind of benefit to the ELL classroom. So trying to figure out quite exactly how to phrase that and what I wanted to exactly focus on was a challenge. But some of the principles that I came across when I was doing more research overlap quite a bit with theories of adult learning. So these are Montessori principles, but you'll notice in them kind of an overlap. So there's an emphasis on cognition being enhanced by movement and using hands-on learning, providing choice so that students have a sense of control and feel self-directed, but having limits within that choice so that students are kind of guided in some way as well. Honing in on student interest and being aware that there are sensitive periods when students might be like catching on more. I mean, this is clearly, initially was more of like a preschool type situation, but Maria Montessori worked with adults as well. And, you know, as those of us that work with English language learners know that, I mean, or have learned a language ourselves, know that there are kind of periods that we kind of learn more quickly. So she also, Maria Montessori also wanted to capitalize on our innate sense of curiosity, our attraction to beauty, and the way that like peers can influence us. So also she emphasized collaborative learning, which is something common with adult learning strategies as well. And she particularly in math, because Montessori is not just about math, but in math, they really move from the concrete to abstract and create an opportunity for intuitive learning by using these materials. And the materials themselves have a control of error many times, where if a student is kind of guided by the materials to be able to check their work or to visually see if they're to be like learning or absorbing the knowledge that is in the materials. My original question was just what methods would be most applicable to the ESL classroom, and I got a lot of feedback from different teachers and Montessori organizations that really cautioned me against claiming anything to be actually Montessori. So I switched it to calling it Montessori inspired materials and how their use would impact learner interest and learner attitudes towards math in general and towards the materials themselves. Because clearly I'm not a Montessori trained teacher, and I couldn't really claim to be using the Montessori method. I used a survey at the beginning and end, and a student engagement rubric that I used twice. I kept weekly anecdotal observations, and I somewhat controlled the choice. I let them have choice in the materials that they used, but within certain control. This is remember this is very beginning ELL, so this took actually quite a bit of help from the teacher and volunteers to get through this. So we just figured out how long they had studied math previously, and if they had studied math in the United States, how much they felt like they liked math and how often they wanted to study math. That was the beginning survey. And the ending survey was not identical, but it did have the identical questions, but it focused on more subjects, not just math. So it was kind of a different way of getting the same information at the end. I created some partner materials that were Montessori inspired, and I list the materials that I used here, and then I'll show you pictures of each of them, so I won't go over them here. And then I had one additional activity that was more about colors and shapes and design that was just something I didn't have like all of the materials that I would have ideally had in a Montessori classroom, so it was just kind of adding to our options when there was more students attending. These are the decimal golden beads. So I'm pretty much showing you them in the order that they would have been experienced or kind of generally. This students can count, that's 1,000 cube on the left. So altogether they can go up to like 1,999. And they would do partner activities of give me 100 square, give me a 10 bead, like using different terms that we practiced. And so it was more conversational, but also saying the numbers and physically like handing each other the numbers or the amounts. And then they would progress to a large, you could go up to 9,999 by using these printed copies, and similar kind of activity with that. This was something that is a children's house, like more like kindergarten activity that a Montessori teacher gave me, and they would, they're kind of like becoming really comfortable with the 100 square here, or with the hundreds, and seeing patterns and noticing relationships between numbers. So we did some skip counting on a blank one, or we did a partner activity of telling each other what color square to color, and then cross-checking the design that it turned out. This is called the stamp game. You all may be familiar with this or not, I don't know, but it's an exchange. You can practice math or addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, but it's really great for beginners in terms of practicing that, exchanging 10 ones for a 10 tile, or exchanging 10 tens for a 100 tile. And this is one of those things where there's kind of a control of error there, in that you can kind of easily go back and see where they made their mistake, if they made a mistake. And this was not a partner activity, this was an individual activity, because there's so much going on kind of in your mind that I think to really absorb it, it would be really hard to add language into the mix with the conversation. And a lot of times with partners, there'd be a higher and a lower partner. So really to internalize it, this one seemed like an individual activity. These are short chains. There's so many materials that I did not get to use, and so many like lessons that I didn't get to teach. So, but short chains are amazing because they're just like So say the 4 square, there's a chain of 4 sections, and each section has 4 beads. And then if you fold them in on themselves, you get a square. So it's like the beginning of working towards the idea of squaring a number. But we didn't talk about squaring a number at all. We would just kind of skip counting by 4s, and then picking up the square and noticing that it was the same as the total of the 4 4s was 16. So it was also set up as a partner activity. And then really only a couple students got to this one at all, and these are multiplication beads. And again, there's like a lot of things you can do with them apparently, but we mostly did the most basic thing, which was lining them up, and you could do multiples of a given number. So say multiples of 5, and so you would get 5 1 beads, and then 5 2 beads, and then 5 3 beads, and then notice kind of working on the times table sort of, or just multiplication and just seeing patterns. So the results were from my survey that at the beginning, 6 students wanted to study math every day, 3 wanted to study every week, and 1 preferred not to study math. She also is a professor in Brazil who was here doing research, so she really did not need math, and she knew more math than me. She stopped coming on Fridays so she could focus on her other needs. And then by the end, everyone wanted math every day, which unfortunately we don't have that option in my school, and I can't quite pull that off, but they did kind of change what they asked. And again, it was in a different format where they were saying, I was asking them, do you want conversation every day, reading every day, like a bunch of things, including math, and they all wanted math every day. I kind of thought that they would all kind of center around 1 or 2 things that would interest them the most, and I lined up all the things, all the activities, materials, and had them put a heart by their favorite activity, and then write again, a Post-it with the word again on another activity that they want to do again. And you can see it just kind of was spread out. The only one that didn't get any votes was the 100 board design. I think they just got a little tired of like saying the colors and numbers, although it turned out to be really useful for a few people. But that one seemed, I think, like not as interesting to them. And then the multiplication beads is more that we didn't get to it. That was a higher level one. And so someone would have had to come almost every time to have a chance of getting at that one. And then I went through the anecdotal records that I had kept, and I chose 2 from each student that seemed like the high point for them. They were the most animated or positive to say about it. And those kind of centered around the stamp game. The stamp game, again, was individual, so it was more of a quiet activity, but students tended to be super engaged, like absorbed in it, I guess I would say. So yeah, I would say that in my research that even though sometimes there can be kind of an off-putting sense to like working with materials that might seem like more geared towards children, students were pretty positive. And I mean, I go into it more in my article of like things that I did to try to make sure it'd be positive, but their interest did not lag or go down, and 3 learners expressed increased interest, and learner interest and enjoyment was spread evenly across most activities. But I guess the big takeaway really is there's some great resources in the Montessori community, and I would recommend actually partnering with a Montessori teacher, because it is actually truly so important to understand the method of how to use these materials. And I doubt that I really did justice to it either, but it was very fascinating to explore. So resources and links. I have a link to my partner and solo activities. They weren't really designed for someone to just grab and use in their classroom necessarily, and plus like you'd have to acquire the materials as well, but just to kind of see what we were doing. And then there's a book called Montessori, The Science Behind the Genius, that was the primary resource that I was looking at. And there's also quite a few models and places that have done Montessori with adults. Nothing that was so well developed like online and accessible that I could totally use it, but there's a lot of more out there, I would say. that's it from me. And I didn't see anything in the chat, so if there's anything there, someone
So
could help me out.
Amy, will you leave your slides up just because we have a couple minutes actually so people can ask you questions. So I just wanted to interrupt before you close your screen.
Sure.
So yeah, thank you for sharing this. This is awesome. Connie had a question about your 100. Hold on, let me find it. Is the 100 board wipe off or a photocopy? It was her question.
It was laminated. Yeah, it was laminated, so we could just keep using it.
And then also, I just want to mention too, Amy said her article. So the way with practitioner research, after the educator does their research, then part of the expectation is that they do a write-up for the math practitioner. So now, we actually have a couple minutes, and so if anyone, you can chat a question to Amy if you have more questions, or you can unmute yourself and just speak with her if there's anything else that you're wondering.
I see a question about are the materials available to non-Montessori teachers to purchase? Sorry, I can't quite see who it's from.
Chris.
I don't know. Sorry. My chat box is weird because anyway, I'm not good at this. But yeah, no, you can totally. I think one of the cheapest ones was Pink Montessori. I don't know as far as quality, like if you have money to spend, there's some extremely high quality Montessori stuff, but even Pink Montessori tends to be kind of on the cheapest end. And that's mostly what I used, or I used borrowed things. And there are long chains. There's a long chain that's, I think, 1,000 long, and there's cabinets. Like I was even at one point thinking of designing a rolling cabinet so that I could actually have these things, but I don't have my own classroom. Anyway, it's just like, the joy of like holding these things and all the things that you can do with them. But of course you can also create them yourself. You can get students involved, like finding a way to make a lot of them yourselves. Help me out with chat.
Yep, I can help you. There's a question, do you see any way to apply Montessori techniques to online learning?
I was thinking about that. I'm going to keep thinking about it. I really don't know. I'm still working with those same students, and I'm really missing that aspect. And I've been doing numeracy, but I've been using Splat. Like that's a totally different direction that I've heard from you guys. So that's most of you sharing. So I'm not there yet, but I'm sure there are things. I just don't, I don't know. That's a great question. And I wonder what the Montessori teachers are doing, because my son's in middle school now and they don't do a Montessori in middle school, even though he's still at the same school. So I haven't seen that.
Okay, so now the questions are really coming in. So next is, did you notice a difference in the English language skills of those who participated? Were they more likely to use math terms in particular?
I think it helped them a lot, the activities with the decimal. Can I go back here? This kind of one. Some of the words were new, so they weren't as useful of words, like the cube, for example, the cube, or the unit. They use unit for the individual ones. But I mean, it was still good. It still worked with phonics. Like those words still follow phonics rules, so they worked for me, so I adopted them. But yeah, as far as numbers, like actually using numbers and using the words, what they were doing with the stamp game to explain that they're adding or they're changing. We didn't really say exchange. We just said we're changing. Yeah, so we adapted it, but definitely.
Someone is saying, can you share the link at the end of your presentation where we can find the activity ideas?
Yeah, I'll do that once I'm done talking. Because you'll lose me. I'll be lost looking for those.
And
sure,
then
I'll chat that out.
we can also include that in our follow-up email that
Mhm.
that will send everyone. I wonder, Eric, could you change the settings so people could unmute themselves? I just see maybe people can ask their own questions.
I did change it. Sorry
You
about that.
did? Okay, so I'm seeing like Camila and Christy. Do you want to just speak up and ask your questions? Because those are good. So Camila's saying she cannot unmute. Christine, thanks for all the questions that you asked.
Oh, hello?
Oh, there you are, Camila.
Oh, okay, it works. Thank you, Amy, all the Amy's. My question was about like fine motor skills and if any of your students had issues with manipulating such beautiful, delicate manipulatives, and if so, how you adjusted.
Yeah, I mean, one concern for me, this isn't quite fine motor skills, but it's just my students are mostly Somali and they're wearing kind of flowy clothes. And so the tiles, like not losing things, some of my materials were borrowed. So I was a little bit like keeping an eye on everything all the time. And it was a little bit intensive in terms of materials, but fine motor skills, yeah, I would say I have a variety of students, like some who do knitting and different things. So they actually, or like henna. So you can really notice the difference between the ones that kind of have that and the ones that don't. But I definitely think that it wasn't like a major issue for anyone, but they are on a spectrum for sure. And everyone was able to do it. The units, oh yeah, those units are very tiny. I had them on felt, so they couldn't really roll away very easily. So that was kind of a modification. That's just how Montessori classrooms are set up though. They have work mats that they're doing stuff on. And it gives them a sense of an environment and a sense of routine, like I'm coming to do this thing now. So I didn't have everything at my disposal that I would have loved to make it's a big part of Montessori is the environment as well. So.
Christy, could you also ask your question? You asked a good question in the chat.
I wondered if you noticed any changes in the way you teach either math or language based on this experience.
I think what Montessori, yeah, definitely. I'm still absorbing that. I feel like it's probably gonna continuously inform how I do not just math at all, but like just generally not sure how to explain it, but I feel like I have a lot more to learn still from Montessori that I'm not really finished learning. And I mean, we already in English, like in teaching English, we already had a big push to always make things as real as possible, bringing in realia and making things tactile and applying it and all of that. But I think what they bring is like, it inspires you to create materials that are actually going to bring beauty to the classroom, that are going to inspire people's sense of curiosity. By having limited choice, sometimes they got to see other students working on something that they wanted to do, but it's not everything was available right now. So people were doing different things and they had a sense of like, I can progress to that. Or, and then the kind of helping each other too, because everything I did was partner oriented, which is also a Montessori thing. They have like, my son was in a 1st through 3rd grade classroom. So he got to experience, being on both sides of receiving and giving kind of help. So yeah, I mean, I'm just not even scratching the surface, honestly, but yeah.
So I think we need to keep going on to other topics. But Amy, thank you so much for doing this research and for sharing it with us. You can see the conversation that it started, and I think when we see your article, and then we have other ways to engage, I think that this conversation will keep going. So So thank you very much for sharing this with us.
Yeah, and I gotta say thanks to Amy too for suggesting it, because I didn't just come up with this on my own. I knew Amy through taking a course at Hamlin and then just sort of being like, I wonder what Montessori would be like with adults. And she's like, oh, by the way, there's this organization. So I'm happy to have found you guys, and thank you for your support in this research.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. I'm glad that you found us as well. And looking forward to see what else you do within the organization. So Rebecca, did you want to just do a general close about practitioner research in general?
Yeah, I just wanted to end also thanking Amy for her hard work and perseverance. I know it's been a rough couple of years with students numbers and things like that, and it was a great research project. And I really liked, for people who are more interested in research on the Adult Numeracy Network, there's a practitioner research tab that you can look at, and they talk more about what's involved. They have the ANN Teaching and Learning Principles, which is kind of the guide that we want people to be using. There are 2 other sample projects on the page that you can access as a non-member, and as a member, you can actually access previous research projects. So if you're looking for inspiration, or you're kind of feeling like, I don't even know what it would look like, you have opportunities to do that. And then like what she did in her classroom, like looking at what would my students learn best, and exploring was a great way to show how that can look. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email.
Thank you, Rebecca. And if you know someone who might be interested, or if you might be interested, just know that you'll get support the whole way. As you know, if you just start with the idea, then it's Rebecca's job to help you formulate that idea into a full project. So thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Amy. So now let's just we have time to take a quick look at our new robust website. So we have Heidi and Mark showing us around a little bit.
Hi, everybody. This is Mark. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties, and I'm on my phone. So Heidi is actually going to drive us as I kind of explain our new website, which I'm super excited about. Before I start, I want to give a shout out to the team of people who actually really developed what's there. And that's Eric and Heidi, and especially Kristen Smith, for overseeing the transition from the old site and building the structure for this one. Really, you know, I haven't been webmaster for that long, but most of what I've been focusing on is aesthetics and building up the content and the functionality. So we just wanted to give you a quick tour. So here is the home page that Heidi's showing you. And Heidi, if you could scroll down a little bit. We have recent forum and upcoming events, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a little bit. But if you scroll down, so that on the left there, that everyone has a math story, what's yours? That's going to be a place on the website, excuse me, where we're going to gather stories. Because one of my roles in ANN is also as the ANN historian, and so I'm interested in gathering stories. And so, inspired by Amber Forniciari has a piece in the current Math Practitioner about having her students write math stories and collecting them. And so kind of I was inspired by that to start gathering some of our math stories. So if you click on that link, Heidi, you don't have to, but if you go to the website and you click on it, you can. There you go. You'll see. It's pretty simple. It's just a basic question. What is your math story? And so if you go back to the website, as of last night, the Adult Numeracy Network now also has a Twitter account. So that will be our Twitter feed. We use the hashtag ANNMath. So you can, if you're on Twitter, you can use that hashtag if you'd like to share your work with the larger group. And so that's the home page. It's pretty simple. So if you go back to the top, there's the practice. And Heidi, if you can just hover on that, we're going to kind of quickly go through a bunch of things, but that's all that's there. That's not all available to everybody, but since Heidi is logged in, and if you're a member and you're logged in, all of that will be available to you. So if you click on the first one, the Math Practitioner, This is where the current issue of the math practitioner will always be found. And, you know, Patricia made the decision a couple of issues ago to collect both the, or to publish a color and a black and white version. So you'll find both of those there to ease your printer if that is helpful. And you'll also be able to connect to the math practitioner archives, which is all of the issues we have on the site right now going back to 2002. And then from a founding member, I actually have I have a bunch of issues from the mid and late 90s that once I get to a place where I can scan, we'll get those out to you guys as well. But that will all live here. And if you go back, Heidi, to the practice, so then you can also go directly to the math practitioner archives, but then underneath that is Ann under 10. So this is, you can see all the videos. These are 10-minute talks that Ann members have given over the past 3 years. It's an event we usually hold at COABE, and they're all fantastic. It's fun, the way it's set up on the page. Last night I was playing around with it, and you can actually you can play them all at once, and since I often introduce people, you can kind of like you can watch me in stereo. But then you should stop it and focus on one, because they're all really awesome, and they all live in one place here. Practitioner research, if you can go there, that's what Rebecca was just talking about, the site that this describes, and this is open to everybody, so you can recommend even non-members to check this out. This explains kind of the process. It has the Ann teaching and learning principles that Rebecca mentioned, and then it has those 2 sample projects from years past. And then only available to members, if you go back up to the practice menu, is the archives. So these are all of the practitioner research, and Amy's will be up there soon. So going back to practice, so numeracy resources is something that we consolidated. So we have these 3 documents, the Ann Principles for Teaching and Learning, the Ann Principles for Professional Development. And so those are always there, as well as, you know, there's lots of things that we could have shared, but we chose just for the header of the page, the components of numeracy, which is a pretty seminal document, both for our organization, but also just for the field of adult numeracy. So those live on the top of the page. And then there's a bunch of resources on this page. This section, the top section there, part of my work as historian was kind of gathering things that Ann members have written over the years. And so each of those are kind of loosely thematically organized, because many of them are rich and cover many of those content. You know, they're about knowing our students, and you know, like there's a lot of overlap. But each of those will take you to a Google Drive. There's probably about 10 or so articles in each. Math teaching resources are just that. Below that, there's instructional routines. I'm sure maybe know one of them. Splat is the one that Amy mentioned, using with her students. Below that, there's math blogs. These are just some things that, most of it is K through 12. There's one adult numeracy one there. I'm hoping to build that out once we all start writing blogs, but that will be a place where we can share those ideas with each other. And then math teacher circles is something I'm going to talk about at the end, but there are some resources here. So when I refer to it, this is where those resources live. So Brooke just asked what the Twitter handle is. It's Adult Numeracy 1 is the Twitter handle. So then if you go back to practice, the Math and Numeracy PD webinars, that's them. So this is a bunch of webinars that I've been able to find. I just started doing this actually 2 days ago, and so I'm still gathering them. So if anyone knows of any, these are webinars that were given they were given by Ann members, but they all reflect the Ann best practices and principles in professional development. So that's just the titles of them, and then those right there are the principles. And if you go above, we have a YouTube channel, playlist. And so if you click on it, Heidi, if you click on the top right corner of you'll see, yeah, so that you can see them all written there. And they're awesome. You know, I watched them all as I was posting them. particularly, it's hot off the press. The first one there is one that Patricia did that I was unable to attend, but it is really good. So I think she's on the call. So Patricia, in front of all, I say it was awesome. And so, I'm sorry, Heidi, I think there's one more under practice. Thank you. So then Ask Anne. Maybe people will talk about this later, but this is the private links group that we have. And so if you want to access it, I'm always all over the place. So it's just everything is here. So you can come here and I'm going to do my adult numeracy business. And so if you click on the Ask Anne, it'll take you to your links login. But if you haven't done it yet, there's a little bit of registering that you need to do for the first time, and so the instructions for those are on the middle of the page there. It's pretty simple, but then you're good to go, and then you won't have to do that ever again. So Heidi, you can go back to the menu on the top. I want to just skip over to the store for a second, because I just want to kind of check that off. So we have an Anne store. You can buy stuff with the Anne insignia, like pins and rulers and tote bags and t-shirts and all kinds of things like that. And then we had a kind of a special commemorative 25th anniversary of Anne membership button. So you can also find those there. And all your friends will be impressed and say, hey, where'd you get that? I want one of those. And you can tell them that it's here. So I just go back, let's see. If you go back to the site, affiliations, those are just groups that we're affiliated with. You can check those out later, but just for the sake of time, so just hang out right there on top so we can see. So Anne history is just a brief, it's actually an article that was from a math practitioner, just about kind of the 25 years of Anne looking back and a little bit of 25 years looking forward. Contact information on the board members and who everybody is, you can find that here. Your regional representatives, you can find their names and their contact information there as well. I'll have to update that with Connie is a new, so I'll have to switch myself out. The forum is a way that we'll communicate, and I'll come back to that. But Heidi, if you could click on the membership map, because this is something that is cool and kind of gets to what Amy was saying. You know, one of the next phases of what kind of where I see the website going is helping people find each other. So Heidi, if you can click on the center, the yellow dot in the center of the United States, the one in the center, go up to, move towards Minnesota. Keep clicking, click there on the 10. Scroll down a little bit, like stretch it, click on the blue 9. Look underneath the A of Minneapolis. So the one on the left, can you click the one? Oh, there's Amy. Amy, that's where Amy is. And click down a little bit. That one right there, and there I am. And so I just wanted to say a couple of things. This is one of the things about this is you can find folks that are in your area, but just to be clear, that is not where I am. That is not where I live. These are not, the bullets, the dots don't connect to your address, they connect to your zip code. So I am not in that spot, but Heidi, if you click on my name, what this enables you to do is not just know who's there, but you can also contact folks. So if you click on send a message, you'll be able to talk to me and say, hey, Mark, or I will get on this and I'll say, hey, Amy, I thought your thing was great. And it's just a way, it's kind of a first step, but it's a feature to be able to find folks around us, because sometimes when you have a national organization, you connect nationally, but we want to make sure that people are able to also connect locally, because there's obviously where the most strength is. And so I think I'm close to out of time. So if the organization, so that the 2018 Anne strategic planning, when Amy mentioned the ANN plan, the Anne plan, that's where you can read it. You can find it right there. And one last thing actually to click on, if you can click on get involved, Heidi. So this is a page that's just kind of ideas, especially if you're a new member and you're trying to figure out, I'm excited, but there's so many things going on. What are some like tangible, concrete things I can do? So this is just some suggestions, and they're kind of, run the gambit depending on how much, like it goes from reading the math practitioner and sharing it with someone to writing an article for them, so there's a range of the kinds of activities that you can do to get involved, but it can be, there's so much that goes on here that we just wanted to kind of make sure that everyone had a clear vision of something they can do. But I did just want to point out, just in my own experience with this organization, that you should never feel limited by any kind of list by this, because really, it's in our mission statement that we support each other, and, anything that you are interested in, you should just bring to people in this organization, and people will help and support you. So that's just about the end. The only thing I wanted to say, again, is just to kind of talk about, the next steps are about developing the forum and the map, and, math teacher circles. This is just an idea that's starting to kind of form, but I'll stay within the website. The thing that we're most interested in doing is creating spaces on this website. This is the work moving forward as I see it, for regions, and maybe even more local than that, to be able to communicate and have some space where they can start building community. Because, we did an organizational survey a few years back, and finding and connecting with other teachers was a huge reason why people joined this organization in the first place. And so the website feels like especially with our new website, there's a lot of functionality where we can really facilitate that. So that's going to be the work of this the web committee, such as it is, which actually is my final word. That if you're interested in web design and kind of this part of the organization, you should email me. I'm a board member, so you can find my address there, or maybe Eric's, or somebody can put it in the chat. And you don't have to have a lot of web experience. I don't have that much. I certainly can't HTML code, but I can Google and cut and paste and trial and error until I get it to look like what I want. But it's really more about thinking about community and thinking about ways that people can interact with each other in meaningful ways in the site. So if that's interesting to you at all, please shoot me an email, because I would love to. I'm smarter with other people. And that's all I got. And so I'm going to turn it over to Heidi, who I think had a couple of other, was going to speak a little bit to the perspective of the transition to the new site. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mark. That was wonderful, and really appreciate you coming on and helping to add some of the additional features that we've been dreaming about for a while. This is, I don't know, maybe the 4th iteration of ANN website that over the years we have added the things that we have been dreaming about, and each time we dream bigger, we kind of tax the limits of whatever website we're using. And so it takes us a bit of time, but we eventually realize, you know what, to keep dreaming, we need a different platform. And so that's what led us to the conversation well over a year ago to try something new. And really the biggest issues we were facing were the things that we're seeing now, like the ability to have the forum updates and the membership map. We still, we've got on here upcoming events, and we eventually would like to have a calendar where members can post, when they're presenting or a state conference is happening, that membership can be engaged with that. And so there are still a lot of our dreams that we have yet to build out on even this new platform. And as Mark said, we invite people who can share that vision and have maybe some tech skills. I don't code either, but I have been able to get in here and not break anything, which is fantastic. But I've also been able to create in it just by trying things out. So if that's your ability or you're interested in it, please help us out, because we've got a lot of dreams and we need some extra hands and energy to put into it. One of the other major things that we chronically have needed was a way to reach out to membership more than just by our personal emails. To give you some perspective, when I first really joined ANN and soon became a regional rep, I needed I needed to send out every newsletter that came through to the membership in my region, and I'm region 2, I'm in Georgia.
And to do that, I would connect with Pam Meter, who is our secretary, and I would find the 11 or 12 spreadsheets, one for each of my states, and every member in that I would send out emails to, unless there were some state reps, and then I would send the spreadsheet to that person, and they would have to send out the newsletter. And that's what we were doing up until April of this year. That is really how we were getting out our newsletter to our membership, which today is 218 members. And it had the potential for leaving people out. It had the potential for people not having the newsletter in the most timely way because everybody's busy. And so we've been wanting for a long time to have a better platform for members to get information from us, particularly a newsletter, but also to make them aware of events and to create that conversation space from our website. And so that's what we really work toward. Kristen Smith found for us Wild Apricot is the host for this, and they're a membership, their software is designed for membership management. And so it's really allowed us to have the kind of engagement that you saw like with the membership map, and to be able to connect with one another through the site. So really appreciate her finding that resource because it did enable us to jump to this. So hats off to everyone who's been a part of one of these iterations of one of the websites in all the years that we've had one to get us to this. And I'm certain this is not the last one, because we're going to keep dreaming, and it's going to need something bigger and better than what we have here. But this is what we have for a while, and really excited about it. Eric, can you steal from me, get us back to the PowerPoint? So while we were, one of the major things that I dealt with when I was first learning about all those spreadsheets is I got to work very closely with this wonderful woman you see on the screen, Pam Meter, whom I had gotten to do trainings with for a long time. And Pam introduced me to the work of the secretary, which is what I eventually became. And what she introduced me to was the amount of work that it takes for membership to stay connected. And like I said, I only had 11 or 12 spreadsheets for Region 2. She was managing all 50 states, plus the master list, plus our international members. And she's just done an amazing job. And she's one of our founding members, who, by the way, I want to see just tip my hat to. I think we have Linda Ginsburg, Margaret Rogers, Ido Gall, Pam Meter. Is anyone else that I missed that's one of our founding members on the call? Scream at me, someone, if I forgot. Yeah, Pam's telling me, because this is Pam. She said Linda Ginsburg also helped on membership. And also Sarah, sorry, Sarah, we forgot to tip our hat to you. Sarah Lombard-Lou has also been a major help in all of the website troubleshooting and designing things and fixing things. She also has put a little, what do you call it, Sarah, Easter egg? Some little hidden gem in the website that you might stumble upon, particularly if you find an error on our page. Anyway, I appreciate our founding members still being a part of this organization and encouraging us and sticking with us and helping out with donations and ideas and leadership. But right now, Pam has been supporting me in my role as secretary for the last several years. And the way she's been helping me is to help manage all those members across 50 some odd spreadsheets. Every time a new member joins our website, either the old website or the current website, I work with Pam to make sure that that member gets a true welcome. And so she writes a personal welcome to every member who comes in, shares a little bit of the background on what the organization is about and how it started as a founding member. She's got a great perspective on it that I certainly don't have. She's added to the conversation for those members by introducing them to their regional rep and the state rep if they have one. When we have members who haven't renewed, she sends, if we had an email that went to them, she does a follow-up a few weeks later to send a personal postcard, handwritten postcard, inviting them to renew. She has made this a personalized membership effort, and she's just been fantastic to work with. So Yes, Pam is awesome. And now that we've gotten this fantastic website, a lot of things are automated. So much of the work that fell to the secretary and to membership chair, which is Pam, we can now start automating. So she has graciously appreciated the work that we're doing and said she's happy to hand over the reins to allow us to grow it from the website committee. And she says, I can now retire. Yes, Pam, you can. So what you'll be seeing is Pam and the new secretary, when we have a new secretary and website committee, they're going to work together so that we don't lose that personalized attention that Pam has given to the new members, and we want to make sure that stays with it. And all of you who are founding members, we would love to hear from you about what can we do to make sure this stays, we don't grow so big that we lose that personal touch. So thank you, Pam. Love you. Glad that you get to retire, and thanks for helping me do my job as secretary all these years.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Heidi and Mark, for sharing about that. And I just want to interject. I want to say I'm going to hand things over to Eric. So I want to say thank you for the opportunity that I had to serve as president of ANN. I look forward to continuing to be involved. But per Janaya's suggestion, I'm going to move it now and see what Eric has to say.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. So my name's Eric Appleton. Many of you I know each other well, and those who I don't, I'm looking forward to getting to know you. I'm a teacher and professional developer in Brooklyn, New York. I work for the City University of New York. I wrote a couple notes because I'm a bit nervous, and it feels like a big moment to me. So I hope you'll indulge me a little bit. I became president-elect 2 years ago, and will be president for the next 2 years, starting today. Like I said, I'm nervous, but I'm really proud of this organization. I'm happy to be a part, and I look forward to trying to contribute what I can to move things forward and help us adapt. The network has been really important to me as I've continued to learn how to become a better teacher, and I've gotten so much from this group of people. And like I said, I hope to give back a little bit of what I've received. Some people I want to thank, especially some, the founding members who are here, who have been mentioned. We are really lucky to have these teachers who have led the way, and I have to say I'm grateful that there's a place for us to come to meet up with adult numeracy educators across the country, across the world, to find and support each other. I mean, this wouldn't happen by accident. This was the result of, hard work and a vision from people 25 years ago, and we wouldn't know each other, and we wouldn't be sharing all these resources if these folks hadn't come before us. So I'm really endlessly grateful to them. I want to thank Amy for being an amazing president over the last 2 years. She is a wonderful teacher. She is patient, she's caring, and she's relentlessly optimistic. She knows when to push, when things need to be pushed, and when to back off. I think she'll be a hard act to follow. I also really want to thank Connie Rivera, who has been the past president for the last 2 years and is moving into the Northeast regional representative role now. Connie's helped us tremendously with her organizational knowledge, especially with COABE, which can be complicated to negotiate with sometimes, though it is a good opportunity. And we're very lucky to have her, and we're lucky to be surrounded with so many people with experience and wisdom to share. As the president-elect, part of my role has been to plan or to lead a planning committee for these institutes that happen in the pre-conferences at COABE. And I've had the pleasure of working with committees of teachers and administrators and professional developers to plan these institutes. And I really want to thank those committees because they put in just untold hours of preparation for these institutes, starting 6 months in advance, meeting every 2 weeks in long conference calls, meeting in subcommittees. It's really like an amazing amount of work. And I'm not going to list off everybody, but you know who you are, and I really appreciate your work. Heidi will be planning the co-aid teaching and learning institutes for 2021 and 2022. I'm sure she would love some help from people who have been on committees in the past. And if you want to join, there's always room for new people. It's a great way to find your way into the leadership of the organization, I think. Yeah, so anyway, it's been a wonderful experience. I will miss being part of that, though. I'll drop in, I think. Anyway, so in terms of looking forward, I just want to say a little bit. Amy shared the goals from some of the goals from our strategic plan a few years ago, and those, represent our current hopes for ANN that we want to be working towards. And there's a couple of those goals that I want to make my personal focus in my time as president, I guess. And I'm going to share those in a moment, but I also want to share some of the hopes that you all expressed in your registration for today's meeting. So we asked you what your hopes were for ANN, and so I just moved to share some of these. Reach adult educators who feel isolated. Spread conceptual understanding to all teachers. Grow to all 50 states and reach even more adult education math practitioners. Grow active membership and add to our working committees. See more folks reach out for leadership roles. Be seen as the premier adult numeracy organization. And fulfill all our wildest dreams, which I especially like. All of these resonate with me, and I think they actually really reinforce that we've got our strategic plan right, because they connect with goals that we have stated for ourselves. We collected these goals by looking at information through surveys of our membership, interviews with peer organizations, and extensive discussions among the board. So there's a couple goals from the ANN plan, the ANN plan, which we sometimes call the strategic plan, that I think that maybe I'm well suited to help move forward. I mean, I'm good at some things, I'm not good at all about other things, but hopefully there are a few things that I feel like I can help with. So I would like to help ANN build our network and connect with teachers who don't know about us yet, and support local initiatives to improve teaching for adults. I hope we can develop many different ways for teachers to engage with the network. I mean, we already have many different ways, as you've seen from the description of the website and the practitioner research. It's really amazing to see everything that's happening. We don't always see it all because we're often different places working quietly on our own. But I really am interested in looking for more ways for people to participate in a way that works for them. I also would like to contribute to the continuing building of the organization and the way it functions. So in terms of working committees and other structures that help us do our work. I've seen that how committees can invite members into the leadership of the organization by writing articles for the math practitioner, being an editor for the newsletter, doing outreach to new members, developing the website, as Mark said, and planning events like the Teaching and Learning Institute. So I'm really looking forward to working on developing more of those committees and codifying that's really a central part of the way we do our work. So of course there's room for us to work on all of our goals at the same time, but these are the ones I hope to focus on personally in order to grow the organization and help it be more effective. Above all, I hope to be a leader that is accountable to our members and our students and our board. That means seeking out information about experiences that are different from my own, especially in this moment. I know that I don't really know, and I need to continue to seek to understand other people's experiences, and I commit to doing that. My hope is that I can continue to learn in this role without it being at other people's expense. I invite feedback from anybody here and other people in the organization, but I recognize it's my own responsibility to remain aware. I don't expect other people to teach me. So just in closing, everyone who's here today cares about adult numeracy and cares about this organization deeply, which, is why you're here today. We all contribute to ANN's mission daily in our teaching and connections with other teachers. I look forward to working with everyone to keep the network strong and build for the future. So thank you all for putting your trust in me. I'm going to pass the mic to Sarah Lonberg-Liu.
We can go on to the next slide. Yeah. So I'm going to try not to take a lot of time with this because we don't have a lot of time. But you know, Amy started us off talking about where we are in the current moment, and we are an organization that is in math education and in adult education. Those are both social justice issues, and other organizations out there, other math organizations, are taking a stand for racial justice. I believe that Black Lives Matter, and so I'm asking the board to start a conversation about what ANN's responsibility is in this moment, how we need to take action, and how we need to move forward as an organization. So that's a conversation that the board will be having. As membership, the people who are here and the people who are not on the call but hopefully will watch it later, we want to hear from you if you have ideas about how ANN should be moving forward in this moment. So if you want right now, you can share your ideas in the chat. But this is a big question and that's a big ask, so you can also reach out to me or to anybody on the board. And you can find all of our email addresses on the website, and the link to the board page, which has all our addresses, has been posted actually already several times in the chat, but I will share it again because we do want to hear from you, and we want to figure out what our place is and how we're going to move forward with this. I'm putting the link in the chat, and I'm handing it back to Eric, I guess.
I think I might be handing it to Amy. Is that true? Sorry.
I'm always happy to talk on a web call. So Sarah, thank you for directly starting that conversation, and I like the idea that we can take a little bit of time thinking about what is it that we want to say, because I agree that adult education and adult numeracy can be in the center of this in a good way, in a helpful way. So we will be figuring that out together over the next near and farther time. So on that note, and as well as on a broader note, we really want to leave everyone with a call to action. So we've covered all the topics of our meeting, and now we're going to just do some hopefully nice invitations, so that anyone on this call who feels inspired can really have a concrete way to join in. So we will, you can expect an email from us after this call. Let's see, we're scheduled to be finished in just a few minutes here, but also I think some of us can stay on after if someone has just like questions or thoughts that they want to share right away. But you'll be receiving an email with lists of how to get involved, and what is awesome, I think, is that you can get involved in a way that makes sense for you. So if you're a person that's on Twitter, then you can just start adding our hashtag ANN Math to your tweets, right? Or you could be on a committee. And I know Mark needs help with the website, with that totally inspiring website. So, and then Patricia always needs writers for the math practitioner. And, you know, so whatever your interests are, there's really a way for you to get involved. So I want to encourage you all to read that email closely and reflect and think about what would make sense for you, or a team at your school, right? A team in your community. All of this is better because we're able to work together and help each other. Let's see. So Eric, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to this, to the call to action?
No, but I guess one thing I might say is that if we do have a few minutes left, it might be nice if, you know, I don't know if it's noisy where you are, but if anyone wants to unmute or everyone wants to unmute, it's an opportunity for us to just have a little open conversation, because this has all been pretty scripted for a little while now. So yeah.
Okay, good. And so let's just do this because of respecting time. We're 2 minutes from closing, so maybe we can just say if you we can close our meeting. If whoever there's just one more slide, the thank you slide. So if you need to go, then I really want to say thank you very much for taking the time to be at this meeting today. I feel very inspired and encouraged, and I hope that you all do too. And if you have thoughts to share about any topic that we talked about what's Sarah's topic, about that just we kind of didn't have much time to talk about at the end, or about practitioner research. So just feel free to stay on the call. If you want to have a more open conversation, as Eric said, because it would be nice to hear from all these people that I like so much.
From New Orleans. I would just say it's nice to see some familiar faces, and sounds like you guys are doing some really cool stuff, because we just see you guys at conference and stuff. So good job, and the website looks lovely, and I guess congratulations to Eric. And y'all tell Kristen I said what's up. She's not in the meeting here today.
China won our giveaway at the conference, the membership. So thank you, China, for joining. That's awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, this is Ido Gal from Israel. Just to say hi to everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. I spent some time with Eric and Mark and Linda last year in New York, and it's wonderful to see all this activity and professionalism. And I'm supporting you from the other side of the ocean.
We're glad that you could be here, Ido.
For those of you that don't know, Ido and Linda really started this movement way, way, way back, right, Ido? In Washington, D.C. So good to see you.
Oh, thank you, Pam. Good to see you. I was not alone. Mary Jane and Myrna and others from the Boston Numeracy group and so on. And all of this happened without internet websites and almost with no email and so on.
Right. That's where I learned how to use email. That tells you something, right?
Yep. But really, if I can also share something, there is a lot of activity in other groups that link with ANN in different ways. And as we all know, time is limited, but there are people who are interested in numeracy at the college level, and they do remedial work and so on, and it's a slightly different take on things, and they have their own meetings and so on. And there is a group interested in statistical literacy and so on. So I think one of the challenges is to find a way to connect and learn from these other communities, because some of the interests and even the methods are the same, and some of the learners are sometimes the same. And the problem, of course, is that nobody has enough time and energy to deal with all of this. But definitely there are other linkages that could be made, and I can help with some of this if you're interested through email and other things. Even where Mark is right now in Minneapolis and other people there, there are some wonderful people in Minneapolis doing work in the area of statistics education that very much overlap with what ANN is doing. At least some of the teaching materials could be shared.
So it is on our to-do list for the budget for the coming year. We're going to buy a Zoom account. It is our hope to buy a Zoom account for ANN, where this one's borrowed. So I just, when you say that, Ido, I'm just inspired by we just have different tools now that can really open up the connections. I think when you were talking, just the idea that came first to my mind was, wouldn't it be awesome to have like a panel conversation where we can ask the same question, ask a question, and then people from kind of different areas can all respond to it. Because that would be, because you talk about busy people, and that is true. So it's like, what are simple ways that we still can kind of get enrich the ideas that are coming through, rather than just the same ideas that we share among each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting to think about. ANN meets at COABE now, but originally ANN met at NCTM, National Council of Teachers of Math, and we've stayed an affiliate. And we realized at one point that our main audience were actually COABE people rather than NCTM, which is much more oriented to K-12. But it's a math organization as opposed to COABE. And so I think it's important for us to keep those connections. We're also an affiliate of Adults Learning Math, which is an international group. It's mostly a research group, but as of now, basically, the journal, which is free online, you don't have to be a member or anything like that. There's 25 years of journal. It's all about math education and adult numeracy. But there's going to be a practitioner article in each issue if people will write them. And and there's some outline that's in the process. But I've thought often, like some of you who have written researchy papers, I'm thinking, Eric, your master's thesis, and some others, that this is also an opportunity, maybe an opportunity to write a researchy or a practitioner article that is will get the American experience out there, because as Brooke knows, there aren't a whole lot of Americans in those groups. They're mostly Europeans. And so I think having those connections, like Amy suggested, way easier to do that now than it ever has been before. And we ought to take advantage of colleagues around the world, like Edo, and other places. And so, you know, we're actually affiliated with these organizations already. And so we really should build on that. You know, it may be time to have another ANN meeting at an NCTM. They always gave us the space. We would recruit from the wherever, you know, it's a conference that moves around the country. This year it's electronic, but normally it's a huge face-to-face conference. And if any of you have ever been to it, it's a wonderful conference. Thousands of people, they're all talking about math education, mostly K-12, but there are some interesting things to learn. And they were always a little helpful to us, giving us space. We never had to pay for it or anything, you know, and just now Sarah put up, when she posted the statements, you know, Todos, which focuses on Latino math education communities, is another affiliate of theirs. And, you know, making connections with those groups is a good thing. And we can learn and they can learn. And so.
And I want to jump in. We've been doing a ton of work in Minnesota to really leverage the amazing adult numeracy work that's been happening. And we were able to actually get our Minnesota affiliate of NCTM to give us our own threads. So we have a whole strand of adult numeracy efforts.
Nice.
And now that work is really spinning over into our 2-year college partners, because they're realizing we have so much andragogological ideas that we could share with them, that they, you know, the 2-year college, the MINMATIC, the local AMATIC wants to really lift us up and have us work together. So I do think those small inlets are making a huge impact in Minnesota. And so if anybody else is interested in trying to start making some headway in their local state, I'm happy to help with any of those.
I really appreciate these ideas that are being shared. I mean, I just have to say that I think this is one of the things that has been hardest for us, and excuse me, in recent years. Maintaining connections with other organizations, reaching out and keeping those robust, I think I honestly think it's one of the struggles we've had. We've done, I mean, for many of us who are in the current leadership, our professional work has been teaching or doing professional development. And so that's what we're most comfortable doing. And I personally, for example, I don't really have much experience in academic circles. I don't have a lot of experience with other outside of adult education. So I find it personally more difficult to figure out how to make these connections. So but I appreciate the help. I wonder if it's another committee that could be formed, and we, you know, using the experience and leadership of those who are sharing information now.
Eric, can I join on this with one idea at least? You know, some of the work that I've been doing over the last 20 years is in the area of statistics education, which seems to be sort of like a different world, but actually there are many connections. And the people in the United States who are involved in statistics education, usually they operate under the American Statistical Association. They've realized that there are many what they call lonely statisticians. That is, there is a small community college and there is a single person who's teaching introductory statistics, which actually is the same material that you would teach at a lower level to incoming students who may be very diverse, heterogeneous, with all sorts of different backgrounds and little interest in math and so on. And so for a few years, they ran a group for what they call lonely statisticians, because they realize that the issue is to create a community, to feel that you are supported, to share ideas, to share frustrations, and so on. And the same might be true for some of the people who do adult education. So it's not about being interested in research or in college level work. It's sometimes about finding ways to enrich what you do, connect with other people, feel that you are not alone in what you're doing, these kinds of things. And so maybe it's possible to take some of these aspects from other groups and put everything else aside if it's of less interest. And so I can communicate maybe with you and Mark and anybody else who's interested on these kinds of issues and make some connections. And maybe there is a way to organize either a Zoom call or a little webinar on this, which is more like sharing, not lecturing, in order to explore some possibilities. And this might be a way to expand the network and provide value for some members, although other members might need other kinds of things as resources for themselves.
I want to jump in. That is so exactly where we're at. I work with a 2-year college system. I'm an ABE site embedded in a 2-year college system. And there's such a motion and movement right now to help support students get through DevEd faster. And one of the things that's on my plate right now is to think about how can I embed ourselves into an introductory statistics course to prevent them from having to take a DevEd math course. So building those numeracy ideas, and that is some stuff that's happening in California, but Minnesota is really looking heavily into chemistry and statistics in particular, and how can we build those foundational numeracy pieces there. So if there is any brainstorming happening, I want in.
I say Joe Bowler's doing a lot with statistics education right now. And the other link I would say is National College Transition Network. Eric always is looking for numeracy people to come. Their conference is usually in Massachusetts, so it's a good place.
Except they just canceled it for this year.
Right. I think everything's canceled for this year. In the future.
Another partnership that I'm wondering about is with special education teachers in K through 12. That's my background anyways, and I find so many connections between making the math content accessible to students with different abilities and ways of learning. And I'm having such a hard time finding anything in adult education that kind of draws from the chest of resources that special education teachers have for material.
So this is off topic, but since we're kind of wrapping up the meeting, I was working on trying to create some resources because all of our classes are now online through at least fall semester, maybe spring semester. And I was trying to create some resources on how to build metacognition for students. And Eric and Mark, everything I came up against was your faces over and over and over again. So if you have any great student-driven resources, not for like teachers teaching metacognition, but for like students to build metacognition, send them my way, because you're like the #1 link. Your face is over and over again when I search for metacognition. So just so you know, you're like internet famous.
This is the way Mark names workshops. So blame him. I don't think it implies any special knowledge. It's just that we like the word a lot. But I'm definitely willing to talk and share. Yeah. So I mean, we could stay on if anyone wants to, and we could also move to close. It's really, if anyone wants to stay and just chit chat, that's a possibility as well.